Morning, y'all. This is Jen Verma, the host of The Best Kept Secrets. I'm super excited today to bring what we're going to talk about to you. I've been like a kid in the candy store for about the last month. But before we get into it, I want to bring Kim, my beautiful co-host, on, as well as Tracy Mathis, this beautiful human that brought all of this wonderful crazy to me that I've been engulfed in for the last month. It's all her fault. So if anyone has beef, you talk to her.
Thanks.
Tracy, what's the email address and your phone number? Right.
Awesome.
Just to kind of preface what we're going to talk about, I'm just going to kind of lead with the history of how we got here to exactly where we are, because this is a new concept. I'm not going to say totally new to me, but it's like 70-80% new concept to me that I was super excited about. And as soon as I learned about it, I think the first thing I did was post a picture on Facebook saying, this is so going to be talked about on the podcast. Like that was before I even got done with the training. So Tracy, this beautiful human, one day just came up to me and she was like, hey, do you want to attend this Aspire conference with me? My husband's failing. I need a +1. You know, it's a one-day thing, blah, blah, blah. And so I said yes, kind of rearranged my schedule and attended this event with her. And, you know, and I just really hadn't done any research into it or what to expect. But I was like, cool, worst case scenario, I get to spend a day hanging out with Tracy. And that's enough for me, right? So we attended this event, and near the end, it was hosted by a gentleman named Andrew Cordell and Eddie Wilson. They together are partners in a company called, what's it called? Collaborative Impact, something. I'll figure it out. Collaborative Influence is what it is. Collaborative Influence. And they were hosting these Aspire conferences. And toward the end, Andrew Cordell, you know, gets up and he starts talking about, you know, how the 1% of the 1% move their money. And these 5 accounts that the wealthy have that they use to create this wealth. And then he basically, because all the other speakers had gone over time, he was like, yeah, that's all I'm going to tell you. That's all I have time for. If you want to learn more, buy this, you know, little mini mastermind thing, this 2-day training, come attend that and we'll teach you more. So Tracy and I, you know, went over and decided to both purchase the training. We went to different events. We didn't do it together, but we both got the same education. And it was like 2 days. I don't know how, Tracy, how you were at the table, but it was like 2 days of me like this at the table, like kid in the candy store. Oh my God, what's he talking about next? Like there was a point where he talked about a tax strategy where I literally, and he had a mic on, you know, a little mic on, and he literally like did this whiteboarding thing and told us the strategy. And I turned to the room. There's like 200-300 people in the room. And I was like, somebody give the man a mic because he needs to drop it. Like I was like, oh my God, like this blew my mind, right? I was like, you can do that? I had no idea you could do that. So needless to say, I've been super excited. And then, you know, this organization, it's called Money Is, and they were like, hey, if you want the detailed training, all the tax regulation, like really get deep into how you do what it is that we're teaching you to do, you need to go to another training, right? So, and become a part of the national community. And so Tracy and I really saw this value. So we bought into this broader community and spent another 2 days seeing through, you know, like mind numbing for most people, minutia in tax law and how, you know, tax law works with these accounts and how to leverage it to create wealth and some of the rules, you know, that is required of this. So Tracy and I have been through 4 solid days, probably 10-hour days of extensive training in this new strategy. And I'm so excited to bring it forward and share it with you. But Tracy, I don't know. I think it was on, and I actually went to a third event that was a different topic, but the same group. And I think by the 3rd day, lunch on the 3rd day, total of my 6 days, I looked at my ambassador to the national program and I said, just say yes. And he's like, to what? I'm like, is now the moment where my head feels so full I can't think anymore. And
Yes.
This is strategically the moment we wanted your brain to explode. I'm like, great, I'm tracking exactly where you want me.
Yeah. I hit that way sooner.
So, I don't know. You want to talk a little bit more about your experience, Tracy?
My experience is 0 in terms of this kind of investing, but something of interest, right? We all talk about how real estate absolutely is the way to go, because it always at the end of the day goes up, kind of like our stock markets. But I've never really done it. I've never played with it. And these strategies, these ways of doing it was all very new to my brain. So I hit that mark day one at the end of the day, and continued on though, because it is really fascinating. And I think it's such a great opportunity for so many people who just don't know. Jen's going to talk about the creators and the contributors. And so that concept alone right there for me was mind-blowing, and thinking I can be in control of it, not somebody else. I don't have to pay somebody else to do this kind of thing. And so that's what money has done for me in terms of my thinking, and how can I move forward with generational, wealth. And so I'm super excited about it.
Yeah. Okay. So we've done all kinds of cliffhangers here, and we've given you no information. It's just lots and lots and lots of hype. So what I'm going to do, because once we get into it, I really don't want to stop the cadence of things. So what I want to do is, London, let's go ahead and break to commercial now. Let's get all the sponsorship stuff out of the way. So when we start diving deep into this, we don't have to come out and try and re-dive in.
My name's Kim Wallace, and I've been in insurance for over 12 years. I started out as a staff member in an agency helping service customers, and I absolutely loved it. Knowing that I could help people even on their worst day just to make it a little bit better was rewarding for me. We take a look at each individual family, and we develop a plan that best suits their needs. Let our office give you the peace of mind to know that we've got you covered. You can call or text our office at 469-604-4484 for a free quote or a policy review. Or you can check us out on Facebook at Insure Frisco.
CrowdShare turns friends, colleagues, family, employees, customers, and anyone else who wants to see your brand grow into your fans. You never have to ask anyone if they'll share your posts. When your content is ready, CrowdShare lets them know when it's time to share, and in less than 10 seconds, your fans can share your posts and move on with their day. It's as simple as that. To see what CrowdShare can do for your brand, go to crowdshare.com/demo to get a tour of the platform. If you choose to subscribe, you can use the code GenVerma, all one word, at checkout and receive 30% off of $99 plans and above for life. That's JenVerma. Who's in your crowd?
Hello, my name is Bibi Carrington, National Sales at ShiftPixie. Now, ShiftPixie's purpose is to bring efficiency to the part-time labor markets. Are you a business owner that is struggling to find people and keep people? Well, the good news is we've curated the largest population of available workers in the country, and they're ready to work for you. You can get access to a live, local, on-demand workforce, so you never have to worry about those shift gaps again. Our technology and our engagement will also help stop that toxic turnover that a lot of operators are facing. Let's jump on a call. Let us show you how we can get you out of the recruiting business for good. I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.
And now back to the show.
Aw, Phoebe, I miss her. Okay, I don't know, Tracy, did you ever meet Phoebe?
I did. I got to know her. We had a couple of one-on-ones, but then she moved away. So
yeah,
I talked with her.
She was my friend. Okay, so back to Money Is and the game that we're playing. Okay, so before we dive in, the Money Is organization is a national organization whose mission is to really educate the I'll call Main Street community on the two different games that are financial games that are being played in this country. And they want to educate them on the one that the wealthy play, because that's not something we typically get educated on and we get exposure to. So that's what they're trying to do, kind of around the country. That said, Tracy talked a little bit about contributors and creators, and their whole program, they reference these two terms, contributors and creators, and neither one is better than the other. They're just different, and the rules of the game are different. So as an example, and Tracy, if you have a better metaphor for any of the things, like jump in and just go, no, Jennifer, it's not like that. So, so Tracy and I actually started a closed group, like organize the people who attended the seminars locally into kind of a closed networking group. And so when we meet, I tell people she's the muscle. I'm like, so Jill,
I reel her in.
so right, muscle here. So if you got a problem, take it with her. It's like fine.
Nice.
So contributors in their definition are really, and this is the easiest way to explain it. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's really the workforce, right? It's the people that contribute to the economy. So as an example, as a contributor, I'd be someone who goes and eats at a restaurant, just as a very simple example, right? So then I'm giving the restaurant money, and the restaurant would be owned by a creator, people who create businesses, ideas, innovation, what have you, that people spend money on to feed into the creator community, just as a very simple use case. Tracy, would you?
Yep. Yeah, we have to have both. It's what makes our world go round. So don't think any one way of or the other of either side, but it's your choice now how we want to move forward.
Yes, which rules you want to play by, right?
Yeah.
And so the rules, the financial rules that we've been taught are those of the contributor. Okay? They sit on the contributor side. They are your traditional 401ks. They are your traditional IRAs. Where we invest in the stock market and bonds and mutual funds and things of that nature, right? And these things were set up by the wealthy for the contributor community. And these are the things they've brought forward as creators for us to feed into. And yes, it works. And no, it's not wrong. And people can get rich doing it. And, you know, there is absolutely a place for it. But on the creator side, there's an entirely different set of financial vehicles that have a totally different set of rules that the wealthy play by. And these accounts and these rules were created by the wealthy, for the wealthy, and they were passed in legislation by the wealthy. So they know
benefit the wealthy.
To benefit the wealthy.
Yes.
They play these games together, this game together, and they move money together. And that's what money is called. They call it moving money. And that's how you create wealth. As an example, you know, when, what was his name? The guy that, Mitt Romney, when he grooms, you should see when I do videos on my own and I record over and over and over and over.
Oh, no.
Takes go. I go like, cause I screw up and I hit end and I go bah, 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 or whatever. And so the outtakes are hilarious. I'm going to combine them all at some point into one video and just show all of the crazy, you know, whatever it is I do at some point, because it's hilarious. Okay. Anyway, so when Mitt grew his Roth IRA to $100 million in 13 moves, 13 purchases. How did he do it? It was like 1 million or 5 million. It was something really small. And he grew it to this massive 100 million number by moving it 13 times. Well,
and tax-free.
What's that?
And tax-free.
And tax-free. Because all of the vehicles that the wealthy have created for themselves are tax, creditor, and bankruptcy proof. Completely. And 100% insured. So none of this, like the current economic climate right now is all the banks are failing. Well, these accounts aren't FDIC insured up to 250. Everything you accumulate within them is 100% insured. Tax-free, bankruptcy-free, creditor-proof, all of it. So, you know, then I think Andrew talked a lot about what the wealthy do is they do three things. They create the money, they know how to keep the money, and they know how to protect the money. And this is the create, keep, and protect mechanism with which many of them use. So anyway, Tracy, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope, you're doing good.
Okay, cool. Kid in a candy store, I tell you. So we talked a little bit about the two different sets of rules. So what does that mean? So, you know, there are accounts on the creator side that very much look like the accounts on the contributor side, but there's one big difference. Rather than them being managed by somebody else, you know, where you're told, hey, invest in this, hey, do this, hey, do this. It's a self-directed, they're self-directed accounts. So you don't put your money in with a financial management firm. You give your money to what's called a custodian, right? And instead of them advising you on where to put your money, you tell them where to put it. but you can put it in virtually, and there are rules, lots and lots and lots of rules that we're not going to go over here. But in theory, you can put that money, your retirement money, in any account you want. Theoretically, like if it was a traditional IRA, it's a self-directed traditional IRA. And I could say, invest it in Tracy's business if I wanted to. And I just call them up and I say, invest in Tracy's business, and they move the money. And the custodian's job is to execute those transactions, and as well as make sure you're not participating in what's called a prohibited transaction, which goes back to the 1,000 rules that we're not going to get into. And they make sure you avoid a prohibited transaction, because if you do a prohibited transaction, you blow up your accounts. So some of these accounts, so they're the 5 accounts that they use to create wealth. One is the Roth IRA, which we're all very familiar with, tax-free forever, what have you. But this isn't your traditional Roth IRA. It's the self-directed Roth IRA, a solo 401k, which is really a plan, not an account. So a solo 401k has a traditional account underneath it, IRA, and a Roth IRA underneath it. And there's certain rules with which when you can have a solo and can't have a solo that, again, we're not going to go too far into right now. There is what's called an HSA, which, again, we're all familiar with the term HSA. A lot of people have them. Heck, Tracy's got one, right?
Yep.
She has one through her husband's business, I think.
Yep.
She said.
Yep.
But it's not the kind of HSA they're talking about, because it's not the self-directed HSA,
Right.
which, by the way, is, what is it? They called it the triple threat on the self-directed side, because in an HSA on the self-directed side, the money you put into the account is tax-free. You get deduction on, right? But you get a deduction that's a 3 times credit. So we'll go more into that later. So it's a more powerful deduction than if you just put it into a regular HSA. And the money you build is tax-free. And when you take it out, it's tax-free. So that's why they called that a triple threat. And then there's a Coverdell account, which looks a lot like a 529, but the other set of rules. So it's still an account for educational purposes that you can only use for educational purposes, but you grow it with self-directed investments using a different set of rules. And then the last, yes.
And you can pass that down by generations.
By beneficiary. So
Right.
the generations is the golden Roth, but
Right.
with the Coverdell, just like with the 529, if you're like, let's say your son, Kim, graduates from high school, goes to college, and he's done, and you still have $50,000 in your Coverdell account, you could hand it to your next child if you have one, or, a niece, nephew, just any child. Frankly, they don't even have to be related to you. They just have to be younger than your son. It can't go up. It just has to go down.
Okay.
So, but you can gift it to a charity, that is strong on my heart. Like if it's a charity like Journey to Dream that sponsors kids that are in the in-between place where, people don't really want them in the foster system, but they're not ready to transition out into college and do all that. So they have what's Kyle's House out in, I think, Denton area. And you could gift it to them, and they could use it to sponsor the kids that are in the program as well, which would be a super great idea. And that just occurred to me. So I'll be doing that when we're done here. I still have 2 accounts I get to open through the program. So I'm trying to figure out which ones I want those to be. So yeah, that's the Coverdell and kind of high level. And then the last one's called a golden Roth. And it's really not an account you can set up. It's an account that you are, you inherit it. So, like Kim, if you had a Roth IRA, a self-directed Roth IRA, and you passed away and your son was the beneficiary of it, then that would then be called a golden Roth, because he could keep it in the Roth IRA and continue to grow it tax-free for up to 10 years. And there are some very specific rules about how old they are versus how old you are and how it's treated and all the things. But I'm going to stop saying we're not going to go into that, because we're not going to go into that. But for the use case of your son specifically, because the age gap that you have, he would be able to hold on to it for 10 years, continue to grow it tax-free. And then everything coming out of it would be tax-free for him. So that's a super powerful one too. And it was funny, Andrew, I don't know if he told you that same story, but Andrew was on stage and he was talking about how his uncle was in, an end of life facility and how he was a plumber. And so he basically, wrote up an invoice because you have to have earned income to open a Roth IRA. So he actually created an invoice that he paid money to his uncle for doing plumbing work on his house. So he could put up a Roth IRA in his name, fund it, start moving money in it, and then leave himself as the beneficiary of the money. So he'd have another account to put it in. See, you can get kind of creative with some of that stuff, apparently, but it was funny. Okay, so those are the 5 accounts. Did I miss anything interesting, Tracy?
No, you did good. That was a good high level.
Okay, so I want to go into just some fun fact. I don't even call them fun facts, but so in self-directed retirement. So I've got my notes here because this is so complicated. I've been like, I need reference material. Okay, so in self-directed IRAs, only 25% of assets are actually in alternative investments. So if you open a self-directed IRA, you can still invest in the stock market. You can still invest in bonds and all the things, all the traditional stuff that we're familiar with. But only 25% to date typically invest in alternative assets, which aren't just real estate, and there are things like you could do fix and flips, you can do with rules, you can do apartment syndications, but you can also invest in businesses. So, or give loans and also become a money lender. So there's so many different ways you can leverage your account to make money and grow wealth within it. That you can get really creative, and people just aren't doing that, which is a shame. So there is a quote, and I want to kind of go back to the contributors versus the creators. So typically in a typically managed retirement account, and this statistic kind of blew my mind, 70% of the interest that you make on your account typically goes back to your management company in fees. 70%, I'm going to say it again, 70% of the profit you make from your investment accounts typically gets paid to the management company in the form of fees. So if you invest $10 and you get a 10% return, so you've got, $11 the next year or at the end of the year, you're going to pay 7 of that or 70 cents of that dollar back to the management company, which is ridiculous because you don't actually lose 70%. If you think about the compound interest, you're losing a lot more. So Jack Bogle is my reference material, the founder and chief executive officer of the Vanguard Group, was quoted near the end of his life saying, "Do you really want to invest in a system where you put up 100% of the capital, it's your money that's going into your investment account, right? Your retirement account. You take 100% of the risk because the money manager doesn't have any risk whatsoever. They're going to make money whether your account goes up or down. And you get 30% of the return." He's the gentleman that started Vanguard. He's the guy that was taking 70% of everybody's money. And it's almost like he was on his, deathbed confession tour. Yeah, like I have to say this because I feel so guilty, but he was a, multi-billionaire on his deathbed, basically telling the world, why would you do what I told you to do? Like, I don't get it. So I took it upon myself to create this, try and put this into action. Like if I take $10,000 at a 10% return over 10 years, and I do it in an account that takes 70% of my interest, and versus putting it in an account where you don't pay 70% of the interest, but you get 100% of the return that you reap, what that looks like in 10 years and what that looks like in 20 years. So if you take that 10,000 at 10% a year, after 10 years with no fee, you would have made 136% on your $10,000. Okay. If you had it in an account that took the 70% fee, you would have made 30% on your money in 10 years.
Which one? Duh.
Huge. Now think about 20 years. No fee, 512% on your money. 70% fee, 75% total in your compound interest over 20 years. That's a 436% difference. That's huge. So even if you switch over to a self-directed account and you go, you know what, I want to take that investment in Tesla and I want to move it over here, and I'm going to have my custodian purchase it instead of keep it over here where I'm paying the fees. you just that alone would increase your returns exponentially over the time from compounding interest. So that anyone reaction? Does your head hurt yet, Kim? Like,
I'm surprised they didn't have life policies on there that are tax-free that build cash value.
They were focusing on the gain because
Gotcha.
yes, there are whole life policies that do the same thing, but they're focusing on the retirement and moving money, because in the whole life policy, you can't invest in alternative assets because there is no whole life account that's self-directed. So their whole focus was that. But yes, those are vehicles as well. You just put them in and you follow the market when you put them in. But yeah, that's a great point for sure. Okay. So, we talked about the triple threat, solo 401ks. Okay. UBIT taxes. The other really cool thing about these accounts. So when let's say you're an apartment complex and you want to get a non-recourse loan, and which is basically a loan where you don't have a personal guarantee on it, and you want to use this non-recourse loan to purchase an apartment, let's say. When you do that, you set yourself up for I think it's estate and planning taxes. I think it's short UBIT for short, UBIT taxes that are on a different tax rate than regular income tax, right? And so the high end, and the tax ranges are pretty low, but the high end is 37% this year. 37%. So when you, as just an individual, invest in apartment complexes, and that apartment complex or that syndication that creates it takes a loan, you're opening yourself up to 37% taxes on the interest you get from the investment.
That's crazy.
Crazy, right? So these accounts, there's certain structures you can put into place where you can still do that. And either if you have the right kind of account, completely mitigate UBIT taxes and not have any personal guarantee on a recourse loan. So like the kind of account I have, I can invest in an apartment and they could take as many loans as they want and use as much leverage as they want to increase the value and the rate of return. And I have zero obligation to pay UBIT taxes. But there's a different kind of retirement account that's self-directed where you're still exposed to it. So if because you have to qualify, it's again, those rules, and we're almost out of time. So I'm just going to barrel through this. If you create a certain kind of, have a certain kind of tax strategy in place, you can mitigate it down to the corporate tax rate of 21% instead of 37%. So, but it's depending on what kind of account you qualify for, what it is you're trying to do, what kind of corp makes sense to you. Some are much more expensive to set up. Some are super simple. But it's a strategy that you choose to take. So I don't know. Do you have anything? We have 2 minutes left, Tracy. That's it. Do you have anything else to add? I've been talking forever. There's just so much.
The only thing I thought was important, at least for me, was, and Jen, you may have to elaborate a little bit, but there are certain structures in which you can create passive income, but as well as income to yourself. So it's not just about investments and it's that money stays out there in the investments. There are ways to be able to then pay yourself without crazy amounts of taxes. But that's all the rules and the regulations that protect you. But there's ways to create both wealth, right? Passively as well as directly to you.
And pay yourself or to give yourself a loan, but somehow feed your business while you're doing this money movement thing, either on your own or in conjunction with other people. Because like Tracy and I could invest in each other if we wanted to, if we had fun things to invest in that we wanted to. And Tracy could say to me, hey, Jen, of that $10,000 investment, I'm going to take $2,000 as a management fee and pay myself. And as long as she discloses it and I go, that's cool, then she can do that. And I can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take $2,000 as a management fee too. So you can leverage your retirement income and the moving that you're doing to also, feed your business where it makes sense.
Right. Within the right structure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Leveraging the rules properly.
Yeah. Because that was the thought that I had started it all with, was how can I help my company to invest in something? And some of these strategies are ways that I can do that. So I have to kind of wrap my brain around how that works for me. But for all of you listening, that was kind of where this came from. At least for me, it was. That was my initial desire.
Well, what's fun is, I'm starting to talk to, because I was doing a little bit of this. I knew about 20-30% of this before going in, because I was introduced to it 10 years ago. Not all of it, but a little bit. And so I've been talking to some of my resources, and I actually I have a venture capital guy that does valuations of companies, and he's a good friend of mine. And I was like, hey, have you heard of the Rob structure? He goes, I just opened one for my company. I'm like, no, you didn't. He's like, oh my God, isn't it the coolest thing? I was like, oh my God, it's the coolest thing ever. So it's fun to see that reinforcement out in the community that we are, we're in. Okay, London's queuing me. We're over time. The only thing I have left to say is what was the quote from Warren Buffett? If poor people would just do what rich people do, they wouldn't be poor. If there's anything, like if anybody wants to learn more, go out to jenverma.com. There's a button for like schedule an appointment. Call me, email me, text me, whatever. jenverma.com, jenverma.com, and all my contact information's out there. Thank you, London. So sorry. Thank you, ladies. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a great one.